Did you know that children as young as 18 months old can experience anxiety?
It's kind of scary.
Yeah, we didn't know that until a few years ago when we started to recognize anxiety in our toddlers that we're working with. And it almost feels like it's a
pediatric epidemic. Like it's everywhere. It's young children, it's teenagers, it's older children, it's
adults.
Everyone is. It's a struggle.
Yeah. So anxiety is affecting a lot of us, and today we want to talk about how it's affecting our young kids as young as 18 months old.
And in this video, we want to talk about 3 big mistakes that you might be making when dealing with your child's anxiety. But before we get started, don't forget to click the subscribe button and that bell so that you are notified anytime we release a new video on how to handle your child's challenging behaviors. Alright, just in case you're new to our channel, we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Alexandra Lilly, a brain development coach. This is Donna Palmer, child development coach.
And we're both parents.
And yes, we are.
So we work with kids between the ages of 6 months old up to 4 to 5 years old. And over the past few years, we have to say that at least 95% of the kids that come to us, we have been able to identify signs of anxiety
in them. Yeah.
And you know what? A few years ago, we really didn't know much like we know today. I'm talking about Alexandra and myself regarding anxiety in young kids. So when we started to recognize that a child as young as 18 months old can experience anxiety at the point where it gets in the way of their learning and their performance, to us that's concerning. That's very, very concerning. So we decided to do something about it. We knew that, okay, if we are going to help these kids, we need to formulate a program that is going to help them.
Yeah, we developed a neurodevelopmental movement program. And not only from the perspective of their signs and symptoms of anxiety, but all the way back into the brain, to the levels of the brain that you can't speak to with words. You can't tell them you're going to be okay. You can't reason with them. So this program goes all the way back to that subconscious mind, the level of the brain where it's unspoken words.
Right. So that, because, I think a lot of times we think we could just talk to our kids and we could just comfort them. But we don't realize that anxiety, can we say start in the brain?
Yeah, it starts in the brain.
Right. So we are getting right to the root
cause
of the anxiety. So that's a program that we've designed. And we recognize that as parents, we've been making mistakes. When my kids were young, I didn't know much about anxiety. And now when I look back, I can really identify when and where they have experienced anxiety. And even at, my youngest is 20 and now I can identify anxiety and put some strategies into place. So we want to talk today about the mistakes that we all of us as parents, you're not alone. You're not alone, okay? So we all make these mistakes. So our goal is to help you to identify those mistakes and, make some changes so that our kids will have a better chance of overcoming anxiety.
So let's talk about what anxiety is. So anxiety is the body's natural response to stress. It's a fear or an apprehension of doing something new or different. And sometimes when that happens, we get into this mode of fight, flight, and freeze.
And when we get into those modes, if we cannot get out of it, then that becomes problematic because that fear gets in the way of our learning, growing, and building relationships.
Yeah. So it's normal to have fear. There's good fear and then there's bad fear. So let's think about our little kids. Our little kids are starting daycare and, they're scared, starting something new, maybe the first week, the second week, maybe after the first month or so. But if we're moving into 2 months and they're still scared and they're still crying, then maybe something's going on. Maybe it's a little bit more than that initial starting something new fear.
Right. Now, what about family gatherings. Like, we have a lot of parents that come to us, Donna, when we have large family gatherings, and it's not strangers, it's all familiar people, but my child just won't let me go. They will hold on to me for dear life. Now, when we look at a situation like that, it's a familiar place, it's familiar people, but still your child is unable to let go of you and be able to, socialize with the other people. Now, that might be something we want to question. Even when they go to the park, we see some of our kids, we go to the park and they will not go up and come down that slide. No matter what, no matter how many kids are doing it, they will not do it. So when we see those types of behaviors and we see fear is gripping our kids to that degree where they are really frozen, then they can't perform, then that can be concerning.
Yeah, because it's impacting them in their learning, their development, right? So this is something that we need to take a look at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's take a closer look now at these situations where our kids feel anxious, where they're afraid, and let's see how we, the parents, handle ourselves in these situations. What do we do to help our kids? Or sometimes we think we're helping, but maybe we're not really helping as much. So let's dive right into this.
So what's the first thing we do? Naturally, as mothers, instinctively, we want to protect.
Yeah, so we perceive, or our child perceives a situation as dangerous, or they're afraid, we immediately jump.
Right, so we remove them sometimes from the situation.
Or remove the situation so that they don't have to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah. When we talk about this, I think about one situation I had in our program where we had one of our kids, she was like about maybe 3.5 to 4 years old, and she started our program, and I would have to say all was going well, but I recognized that when her aunt would pick her up, she would cry and she would complain, and couple days in a row the aunt would come and say, you know what, Donna, Mary is so scared of coming to daycare and I'm worried. And that happened for about 3 or 4 or 5 days, and then eventually the aunt decided that I'm going to take Mary out of your program. And I am, when that happened, I really had to step back because the parents are in a predicament, right? Your child is saying, I'm scared to go into the program. So it's something, yes, as parents, it's a valid reason for you to feel, okay, something's going on.
Right? Of course, yes.
But removing your child from the program, I felt that was a little bit too extreme. I felt like we could have come together and we could have investigated what is going on. Why is she afraid? How can we help her to, to be in the program and not experience that level of anxiety? There were so many things that we could have done, but she was removed from the program.
Right.
Because her parents at that time felt that was the best way to solve the problem, was to just remove her from the situation. So as parents, sometimes we feel like if we remove the kid from the situation, or we can get rid of the situation so that my child don't have to deal with it, then that is the best thing for them. But it's not.
No.
Because if we keep doing that, we're not really teaching our kids how to handle difficult situations.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, it might be a fear factor. Yes, the fear is real.
Yes. Yeah, we're saying it's real, but we still have to find a way to teach them how to manage that, and that removing from the situation is not always the right.
Right, it's not the best option. So, if you find yourself doing something like that, like, if your child is afraid of a situation, afraid of something, and you look at the situation, the key is to evaluate the situation. What is the real effects of this situation, and how can I help my child to work with it and to overcome it? What strategies can we give to help our kids to deal with the situation at hand?
So, biggest mistake number 2 is we over empathize by protecting them or protecting their emotional well-being.
Yeah, because especially us as moms,
Yeah.
let's be real. When our kids are really anxious and are afraid, we become afraid.
Yes.
And it's not a nice experience for any one of us. And as moms especially, we feel like we just need to get in there.
Yes.
We just need to comfort them. We just
our
need
arms around
right,
them,
and we need
protect
just
them.
exactly, because their emotional well-being is at stake.
Yeah.
Right? And that's great. We do have to comfort them. We do have to support them. But we have to be mindful that when we are comforting and we're supporting, our goal is to help them overcome the fear,
Right.
not to encourage and support the fear itself.
Right.
So it can be a little bit tricky, but our goal in comforting must always be to get you over the hump, right? I know you're afraid of this, but you're going to be okay. We are going to be okay. And our goal is always to move beyond the fear and to help our child learn how to handle the fear. So not to just encourage and stay there. It's like, how do we move beyond this? So
Right.
that's the mindset we need to have when we are encouraging and supporting our kids through that situation where they're being anxious and they're being afraid.
So, we'd like to ask you, what do you do when your child is feeling anxious? Just let us know in the comments. Okay, biggest mistake number 3 is we project our own fear on our children. That's easy to do.
Because when our kids are dealing with some scary situations, I mean, think about you dropping your child off to school and they are afraid to go into the classroom. It's, they might be JK, SK, going to school for the first time. They are crying, they are afraid, and you are afraid because you're thinking about,
all these.
is somebody going to bully them?
Yeah.
Are they going to make friends? Or is the teacher going to like them? So you have your own fears, and now you project those fears onto your child. So now it's their fears plus my fear all added up together. So we have 1 + 1 make 2, twice the amount of fear that we are dealing with.
Yeah.
So what do we do in these situations when it's a real fear factor? Our kids are anxious, we are anxious. I think what we need to do is to really step back a little bit as parents. Remember, we have more knowledge and we can understand things better. So as parents, we need to step back, evaluate the situation that is at hand. And we need to make a good judgment in terms of the anxiety that is happening in our child and in ourselves. Now, yes, I know that I'm worried about somebody might bully him. Is the teacher going to like him? Is he going to make friends? Yes, those are real concerns.
Yeah.
But how I am reacting is very, very important to how my child is going to experience this time at school. So I need to start controlling me because I just evaluated the situation. Yes, these things are real, but there's also a strong possibility that he or she may not experience that.
Right.
So why are we going through unnecessary fear over something that may not happen?
Right.
So instead of encouraging an idea of what could happen, how about we support and encourage an idea that this may not happen? So we're not dismissing the fact that this can happen,
Right.
but we are more in support of it may not happen.
Yeah.
Right? And let's think about self-fulfilling prophecy too. If we think positive, it's more likely that a situation might happen. Our positive thinking is not going to change the situation. It's going to change how we handle the situation.
Exactly.
Right? So if we think positive, we help our child to think positive, we all go into the situation with that positive thinking, it's more likely that we're all going to respond to the situation instead of react. So how about you try taking a deep breath, stepping back, evaluate the situation, and make a good judgment call. Okay, so let's just quickly review those 3 big mistakes that we all make as parents. And listen, all of us, we make these mistakes. Okay, so you're not alone. You're not alone. Number 1 is we feel the need to protect our kids. And in doing so, we want to remove them from the situation or remove the situation altogether. Number 2, we feel the need to protect their emotional well-being. So in doing so, we over-empathize. We feel like we have to support them and we have to show empathy, but we overdo it at times. And number 3
is we project our own fear on our children, right? So
if you find that you've listened to this video and you can identify with these mistakes,
even 1, 2, all of them, please reach out. We would love to help you in dealing with some of these big mistakes, because they're hard sometimes to overcome, right?
Yeah, and for parents, for us, I mean, I know for myself, right? My kids, my daughter is 20, and I'm still, now that I know what I know, I endeavor to make changes, and it's not easy to make those changes. I'm so glad that I have my friend Alexandra here to help me and hold me accountable. So you know what? You might need some help. You might need a friend. You need
some support, and that's what we're here for. So you can reach us at admin@parentingbeyondbehaviors.com.
And be sure to check out our next video, where I'm going to share my struggles in my parenting journey. And I've had struggles because I've been a parent for 29 years now. So I'm sure I have a lot that I can share with you. So be sure to check out our next video, where I will share my story.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.